Let me ask you a slightly uncomfortable question.
Oh boy.
No, seriously. Like, if you do everything society tells you to do, if you eat perfectly balanced meals, avoid every conceivable risk, manage your stress, and somehow make it to 100 years old, does that actually guarantee you've lived a fulfilled life?
Yeah, that really forces a person to confront what they're actually optimizing for.
Right.
Because we pour, massive amounts of energy into doing all the right biological things, often just assuming that staying alive longer automatically equates to living a complete life.
Which is a huge assumption. And welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. Today, we are looking at a really fascinating philosophical and sociological paper exploring the center frontier model of lifespan and personal fulfillment.
It's a great piece of source material.
It really is. Our mission today is to take a hard look at the default assumption that living longer is always better. We want to give you a practical framework to separate society's expectations from your own, personal measure of a complete life.
Because this paper completely flips our standard health metrics upside down.
Totally does. Okay, let's unpack this. Why have we all collectively agreed that raw longevity is like the ultimate gold standard for a successful human experience?
Well, to understand that, we have to look at the mechanics of modern society and public health, really.
Sure.
If you are designing systems for millions of people, like building hospitals, setting retirement ages, funding medical research, you cannot operate on subjective feelings.
No, of course not. You need hard data.
Exactly. You need hard, quantifiable data. You optimize for survival rates, life expectancy, disease reduction. Because a state's primary function is to maintain the biological existence of its population.
Which highly rational.
Very rational. It's a highly effective system for managing human beings in the aggregate.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you can put mortality rate on a spreadsheet. You cannot put inner peace on a spreadsheet.
Right.
That actually reminds me of looking at my smartwatch. Like, my wrist is literally vibrating right now to tell me to stand up and hit my daily movement goal.
Got to get those steps in.
Exactly. Yeah. And it tracks my resting heart rate, my sleep cycles, my step count. But there is absolutely no metric on this device for fulfillment.
Not a single one.
I mean, I could have a perfect health score on my phone while quietly having an existential crisis. So are we as a society just optimizing the wrong metric entirely just because biology is the only thing we know how to measure?
What's fascinating here is that the biological metric isn't inherently wrong, but it is fundamentally incomplete when you apply it to the individual experience.
Incomplete how?
Well, maximizing biological survival and maximizing the value of one's life, those are two entirely different optimization problems.
Wow, yeah.
Medical science views adding 5 years to a life as an absolute triumph. But, if those 5 years are spent without independence, without personal agency, or without any meaningful experiences for that specific person,
Then what's the point?
right, the medical victory does not automatically translate into a human victory.
The paper does something really interesting to tackle this, actually. Instead of just using the word lifespan as this, massive monolithic block, it fractures the concept into 5 distinct layers.
Yes.
And honestly, looking at these layers explains so much about why people feel so disconnected from their own aging process.
It really exposes the friction between what society observes
Mm.
and what an individual feels. Like, the first layer is medical lifespan.
Which is purely biological.
Right. Is the heart beating?
Yeah.
Are the lungs functioning? It is just the raw duration of survival.
Which leads to the second layer, the healthy lifespan. This one's about physical and cognitive independence, right?
Exactly. It's not just, are you alive, but can you walk up the stairs? Can you feed yourself? Can you make your own decisions?
And you can already see a gap forming there because modern medicine is incredible at extending medical lifespan far beyond the natural limits of our healthy lifespan.
Oh, absolutely. And then the paper introduces the third concept, which is social lifespan.
Ah, yeah, this one is huge.
It refers to an individual's active participation in society. Can you work? Do you have a role in your community? Are you, economically active?
That one hit me hard. Just think about how many people are pushed into forced retirement or face severe ageism in their industries.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Their social lifespan is effectively terminated by society, even though their healthy lifespan and medical lifespan might literally have decades left.
Yeah.
That creates a massive void. You are physically capable, your heart is beating, but society tells you your productive role is over.
And that void is exactly where the internal crisis begins, which brings us to the final two concepts. Because up to this point, medical, healthy, and social lifespans, They are all externally observable.
Right. A doctor or a state official can measure them.
But the fourth concept is personal fulfillment. This is entirely internal. It is the degree to which an individual experiences their own life as sufficient.
Sufficient. That's a good word for it.
And that culminates in the fifth layer, the completion of life.
So we're essentially separating the biological pulse from the human purpose. The idea that completion of life is a totally separate dimension from how many years you've been on the planet is, I mean, it's wild to me.
Well, lifespan and the completion of life must be treated as independent variables.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Sure. A person might live a relatively short biological life, perhaps dying in their 30s, but experience a profound sense of completion.
Right.
Conversely, an individual could live to be over 100, possess excellent health, have a long social lifespan, and yet reach the end feeling completely unfulfilled.
But how does the paper actually define completion? Because in our culture, completion usually means crossing a finish line, you know?
Yeah, achieving something big.
Exactly. You climb Everest, you sell your startup, you get your kids through college, and boom, you are complete. You get a trophy.
The source material offers a radically different mechanism. It argues that living a life to completion is not a temporary high of achieving a monumental goal. The paper defines completion as the disappearance of a fundamental sense of incompletion.
Wait, hold on. Just the disappearance of a feeling?
Yes.
That sounds a bit, passive, honestly. Are we saying a complete life is just giving up on having goals? How is that different from just being resigned or apathetic or deciding you're too tired to try anymore?
It's a great question. Apathy and completion might look similar from the outside, but their internal mechanisms are polar opposites.
How so?
Well, apathy is the state of giving up because the perceived cost of trying is too high. It's driven by exhaustion or cynicism. You still feel the void, you just stop trying to fill it.
Oh, that makes sense. You're just ignoring the whole.
Exactly. But completion, according to the paper, is a resolution of the void itself. It's the moment a person no longer carries that underlying nagging deficiency that says, I still have to accomplish something to be worthy.
Or like my life is not enough yet.
Right. It is a profound psychological arrival at sufficiency.
So it's not that you stop doing things, it's that the things you do are no longer frantic attempts to prove your life has value.
Yes.
Like, you could still climb Everest, but you're doing it from a place of wholeness, not because you think the mountain will finally make you feel complete.
That captures the essence of it perfectly. And when that fundamental sense of deficiency resolves, age becomes completely irrelevant. It's an internal state of equilibrium.
Which society can't give you.
No, it can't. And this brings us to the core problem with the public health model. Society cannot facilitate this equilibrium for you.
Because it's focused on the aggregate.
Right. States and medical institutions operate on what statisticians call a large N. They observe trends across millions of people. But personal fulfillment is fundamentally an N equals 1 phenomenon.
Meaning a sample size of 1?
Precisely.
So public health is literally forced to ignore our N equals 1 reality. They aren't just bad at measuring it, they are blind to it by design.
They have to be. I mean, a doctor can tell you that a certain medication will statistically increase your medical lifespan by 10%. That is valuable large N data.
Sure.
But that doctor cannot tell you if the side effects of that medication will destroy your personal fulfillment. Statistics cannot calculate the subjective weight of your specific desires, or your specific pain tolerance, or your specific definition of a complete life.
So what does this all mean? To me, it feels incredibly validating. Like, think about your own life right now. Are you grinding away at a job you hate just because society told you that having a robust 401k at age 65 is the only way to be secure and complete?
People do it all the time.
They really do. It means you don't have to wait for society to hand you a certificate of completion based on your age or your health metrics.
Yeah.
But it also presents a huge challenge.
It does.
If society is blind to my N equals 1 and all the metrics I've been taught are based on this massive generalized data pool, where do I actually go to find my own measurements?
Well, that requires stepping into the core framework proposed by the paper, the center and the frontier.
Yeah.
These are the two distinct domains every person must navigate.
Let's break those down, because the center is basically the common denominator domain.
Right.
It's the realm of the state, of science, of medical guidelines. The center operates on generalizations like being healthy is generally good, minimizing risk is generally good, extending life is generally good.
And the paper is very careful to say we shouldn't demonize the center.
No, not at all.
Yep.
We need the center to keep the water clean and the hospitals running.
Absolutely. The center is rational and necessary for survival. Without it, society collapses. but its power comes entirely from its generalization.
Right.
By definition, a rule designed to keep 10 million people alive cannot perfectly represent the deeply specific values of any one individual.
Which brings us to the individual's domain, the frontier.
The frontier is the unique coordinate that belongs solely to you. It is the space of n equals 1. The center asks the question, what is generally true for human beings? The frontier asks the far more difficult question, but what is true in my case?
I keep thinking about buying clothes.
Oh,
Yeah, like the center is like walking into a massive department store and buying off-the-rack clothing. A medium-sized shirt is just a statistical average of thousands of medium-sized humans.
that's a great way to look at it.
It's incredibly efficient. It keeps the population warm. But the frontier is bespoke, custom tailoring. It's taking a tape measure to your exact shoulders, your exact arms.
And the danger, as the paper points out, is when you start confusing the two.
Exactly. If you only ever wear off-the-rack clothes your entire life, you eventually forget your own actual measurements. You start looking in the mirror and believing that the standard size is your body. And if the medium doesn't fit quite right, you blame yourself instead of the shirt.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sociological term the paper uses for that phenomenon is over-adaptation.
Over-adaptation.
Right. It occurs when a person unconsciously equates the center's generalized judgment with their own personal truth. They lose the boundary between the public metric and the private experience.
So when the general guideline of living longer is good morphs into this intense personal anxiety of, I must do everything perfectly to live as long as possible, no matter how miserable it makes me.
Yes. Or internalizing the center's metrics as moral imperative.
Oh, like tying your worth to your health.
Exactly. If society says health is the ultimate good, and you happen to develop a chronic illness, an over-adapted person will feel a profound sense of personal failure. Their life gets entirely absorbed into the center's evaluation system.
That is so heavy.
It is. They stop asking the hard questions at the frontier, like, what am I willing to give up to follow this medical advice? Or what experiences would actually be enough for me?
The problem isn't that we interact with the center. We clearly need the center's data to survive. The problem is forgetting we have our own measurements. But if we recognize this, what is the actual mechanism for living? Because I can hear someone listening to this and thinking, okay, the center doesn't know me. I'm going to throw away my smartwatch, ignore my doctor's advice on cholesterol, and just live fast and furious on my frontier.
The text explicitly warns against that interpretation.
I figured as much.
Yeah, prioritizing the frontier does not mean sheer rebellion, selfishness, or rejecting scientific knowledge. Ignoring the center entirely is just as foolish as over-adapting to it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The paper proposes that the solution isn't picking one or the other. It's a constant movement, a pendulum swing.
Yes.
Center to frontier, frontier to center.
It is a dynamic, lifelong process of translation. You receive general knowledge from the center, perhaps a new public health guideline about diet or a medical diagnosis.
Okay.
You do not blindly submit to it, but you also do not blindly reject it. Instead, you carry that information out to your frontier.
It makes me think of visiting a massive national park. The center is the park ranger. The ranger hands you a map and says, stay on the paved path. Statistically, this is how you avoid falling off a cliff or getting eaten by a bear.
And that is great advice.
It's fantastic advice. It keeps millions of tourists alive every year. But if you only ever stay on the paved path, you only ever see the exact same view as 10 million other people.
Right.
The frontier is the decision to step off the path into the wild. You still use the ranger's map to understand the terrain, but you are choosing to navigate it based on what you want to discover, accepting the unique risks that come with your specific route.
That analogy captures the tension beautifully. When you step off the path, you are taking the center's data to your frontier.
Yeah.
You evaluate the medical advice against your own desires. You ask yourself, does adhering to this strict regimen eliminate the cultural foods that tie me to my family?
Oh, wow.
Does chasing an extra 5 years medical lifespan fundamentally destroy my personal fulfillment right now?
And then you swing back.
You swing back to the center to compare. You might realize my choices put me slightly at odds with the general medical consensus, and I am consciously accepting that reality.
Right.
This movement allows a person to hold two seemingly contradictory thoughts in their mind at the exact same time. This is generally true, A and D, but this is what is true in my case.
It completely reframes how we consume information. You are no longer a passive patient waiting for instructions. You are a traveler.
A traveler. I like that.
You go to the center to gather supplies. You get the best scientific data,
Uh-huh.
the safest guidelines, the best medical interventions available, but you are only gathering the supplies so you can survive out on your own frontier.
This raises an important question for you to consider about your daily routines. How often do you actually retreat to your frontier to evaluate the rules you are following?
That's a tough question.
Or are you simply living your entire life in the center's waiting room, hoping they will eventually call your name and tell you that you've succeeded? Ultimately, the individual must accept the profound responsibility that no institution, no doctor, and no smartwatch can make the final determination of what your life means.
Living in the center's waiting room, just sitting there, hoping that because your cholesterol is low and your step count is high, society will eventually hand you a feeling of completion.
But they won't.
No, they won't. The entire framework we've discussed today hinges on realizing that the center is just a map. It's a highly detailed, incredibly useful map of human survival.
Yeah.
It shows where the statistical hazards are, how to navigate disease, how to maximize your biological time on the board. We should absolutely consult the map, but looking at a map is not the same as walking the terrain.
Not even close.
Only you, the person who actually feels the wind and the exhaustion and the joy of the journey, can measure if it was fulfilling.
The frontier is not some rebellious territory outside of society. It is simply the quiet internal space where the question always remains, but what about me? To live one's life fully means accepting the friction between the map and the territory, and ultimately returning the final judgment of your life's value back to your own N equals 1.
This deep dive really makes you reconsider the invisible checklists we all walk around with every single day. We started by asking if doing everything right, eating perfectly, staying incredibly safe, extending your biological life to 100 guarantees a fulfilled life.
And the answer clearly is no.
It really is. Those things might maximize your medical lifespan, but they are powerless to trigger the completion of your actual life. So, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that builds on this friction between survival and fulfillment.
Go for it.
If the true metric of a complete life is simply the disappearance of that nagging feeling of incompletion, what if the very things you are sacrificing right now to extend your biological lifespan are the exact things preventing you from feeling complete today?
Oh, that's a brilliant point.
What if the intense daily stress over optimizing your diet or the years you are burning away at a miserable job to ensure a statistically secure future are the exact hurdles keeping you from reaching your frontier right now?
It is a profound paradox. Sometimes the pursuit of survival becomes the greatest obstacle to living.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the map, don't be afraid to step off the paved path to explore your own frontier, and we'll see you next time.